I think 2023 is the year to get real. Get real this year. Yeah. Dig into your brand. Keep it real. No, dig into your brand.
Work.
Your authenticity is key. You have a reviews economy. You have a lot of people leaning on influencers in order to be able to understand what it is they're going to do for their next big decision. Getting a job, big decision. So you really need to get real. We can't do this manufactured environment anymore. You can't do a brand from an arm's distance. It has to be something that's inside the culture, and make sure that the things that you do push forward are the things that build sort of a bulletproof environment for your brand, right? Like, create a predictable space for yourself. Like, to what Lauren said earlier, there's nothing worse than like getting a phone call or having something pop up where you're like, maybe that did happen, right? So build a predictable environment for you, your people, your clients, your employers, your candidates, your community. Like, get real this year.
What is happening, Rob?
Lauren, how are you doing? We're going to release this episode in January, but it is the semifinal of the World Cup, and I'm going to be in France for the final. So I'm really pulling for France, even though Morocco is a great story. But I would like to party with some French people if they win the World Cup again.
Me, yes.
No, that's terrible. Don't do that. I got to get that out of my system before Friday. And I see
I'm
French
sorry.
people. Lauren, what is wrong with you? God.
Well, okay. Well, don't offend me. I am French. Okay.
Oh, listen, Lady Buffington.
Okay. So there's a lot of Welsh and English in there too. Okay.
Oh boy. All right. Well, anyway, guys, we are super excited. We have some fantastic guests on. We have another triumvirate of marketing experts for the staffing and recruiting space, Jeff Staats, Leslie Cardec, and Jeff Pellicio. Leslie, I'll say hello to you first. How are you doing since you are the newcomer on this repeat episode that we're going to do annually?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining on. We appreciate it. And Lauren would literally murder me if there wasn't at least another woman on out of town.
This is true. Murder would happen.
Just to be clear, I do understand my life limits here. Jeffs, how are you, sirs?
Should we do it in unison? Like, is that a plan? Like,
we should together.
Come on, Jeff.
Hey,
We could. This
How
would have
many
been awesome.
Jeffs does it take to do a
Just say
marketing
hello.
podcast?
Right. We need a female.
Or just
Jeff,
say hello.
and then you'd be
it's
happy.
at least two.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Two
super
Jeffs
happy to
make
have
one smart person. So.
That's
Yes.
right. Two Jeffs make a right. Two Jeffs make a right.
Two
solid.
Jeffs.
I appreciate you guys. No, it's good to see you guys. Thank
See
you guys
that marketing? See that marketing
Yeah,
kick in?
I see it.
Yep.
Everything is branding. All right. Ooh, he's doing the finger dance. All right, cool. So, guys, are super excited. Obviously, setting the tone, making sure you guys are probably in the thick of it and at the end of the year while you're planning. Obviously, there's always time to pivot. We're here to hopefully give you some insights as the year kicks off to what you should be focused on. And I think it's still a weird time now because of inflation and recession talks and massive layoffs. But I think it's kind of good to think about how do you do this thing called marketing? Because, by the way, I'm going to be very biased here, and I have a whole group of people who like marketing. I think marketing is way more efficient than sales if done correctly because it's one to many. So I know that's not the normal think for our industry, but I'm just going to keep saying it because hiring new marketing people first, it's so stupid. But anyway.
Stop firing marketing and training, please.
Yeah,
Stop doing that. You need them the most.
They help with things operating efficiently or at scale. But anyway, let's get right into it. So we're talking foundations, things that your staffing firm has to be able to do. And Leslie, I think you kind of came up with some really great points to kick us off in the pre-call and in our notes. So I'm going to kick this over to you. What is foundational that your staffing firm has to be able to execute on for 2023?
Yeah, I think it's something that was touched on last year on your podcast that I think is probably going to continue for the foreseeable future. And it's just focusing on your foundation. It's nothing earth shattering or new, but a lot of the times we'll have prospects or customers and say, why aren't our ads working? Why isn't this working? And then when you look under the hood, there's all sorts of foundational things that need to be taken care of first. And so it's really thinking about not getting distracted with the newest, shiniest toy and really kind of honing down on the things that are the basics of marketing. Think website, think SEO, email, social media, community management, reputation management, all of those things that are critical to the foundation of your business and marketing, and really making sure those are intact before you, throw a lot of paid dollars towards it and expecting, things to happen overnight. It really is a long tail game, and you got to start with the foundation.
Can I ask how many people are, for everybody on the panel, email marketing, is everyone focused on that strongly? Leslie shaking her head,
Yeah.
Jeff shaking his head,
Yeah.
or Jeff Stats is, Jeff P is. Jeff P's going to say something.
I mean, listen,
gonna
email
be good.
marketing is you're setting that bar high. Email marketing is always important, but so what Leslie just said, to sort of piggyback on her point, it is the orchestration of all of the things. Marketing isn't one thing; it's the coordination of all of the efforts, working in unison with your process, with your people, with your initiatives to support your brand and your frontline activities. So, if you were to target to say, like, is email marketing still going to be a thing? Email marketing never wasn't a thing. So we do have to continue working on that, in the same way that we need to continue working on leveraging content and making sure that we're providing people with resources at the front line for enablement tools to speed up sales cycles and shorten hiring cycles and build digital trust and educate consumers. Like, it's all super important. So yeah.
And then
Email marketing.
one more question. How many of your customers have community managers, are building a community of their customers or candidates at the moment?
I have few.
Jeff
Like,
P,
there's not a lot of people that have dedicated sources for community management, but it should be handled internally.
Jeff Stats?
No,
No?
I mean, again, dealing with small and mid-sized staffing firms, and I mean, it's really tough to even, engagement is tough. Having internal engagement, let alone a community. So yeah, there's not much on our side.
Yeah,
Was it-
I would say the same. It's mostly outsourced, but
Yeah.
there has to be buy-in internally because it covers across different departments. Think about the types of things that happen. It's not just, I love your article, this is great. It's stuff that hits HR, legal, things like that. So having a coordinated effort across all departments is super important, and getting buy-in.
Yeah, and I feel like we're still recovering, if you will, from the loosey-goosiness from COVID. I feel there's a lot of operational hangover from COVID, and as it pertains to Jeff, what you were referring to, and aligning your marketing efforts to your internal operations, and Leslie, what you're referring to, and foundational items. Those things were overlooked in the effort to, stay afloat. Nobody knew what was going to happen during this pandemic. And so, I feel like there was a lot of wild west with operational best practice and those types of things. So I think you're 100% right in coming into 2023, ensuring that the foundation of your house is sturdy and can support the weight of all the other things that we need, to do moving as we move into 2023, because there's more that we have to go through.
If I could also just point out too, right? So the pandemic was an extraordinary thing, right? What it did is it exposed a lot of the things that we weren't sure if was true. Exposed a lot of the things and made them very true, right? So where the gaps were in our technology, where the gaps were in management, where the gaps were in our process, in our strategy, in everything. And I think that it really accelerated the game for an industry that tends to lag behind other industries in terms of sophistication. It really accelerated things, shined a spotlight on where the problem areas were. And, I think that's where, as I look into 2023, that's where any of my market concerns are basically coming from, kind of the aftermath of what we've experienced.
Yeah. Do you want to, with that kind of on that thread, Jeff P, do you want to talk about, and I think you mentioned this to Jeff Stats, is about like automation, and that's kind of, you called it fragile automation, Jeff P. So, and it kind of threads into something that Stats mentioned. So cut that and riff off that. for a
Yeah,
second.
sure.
Continue that. thought.
So I think that like as we went through the pandemic and everybody was like, running around in circles trying to make sure that their infrastructure was in place, that people could still get the job done. And arguably I will say, like, round of applause for all the staffing agencies that pulled it off. Yeah. Like it was no small feat. You have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people at work, whether they be your contractors, your direct placements, your internal employees, you all kept it together. If you're listening to this podcast, you've all kept it together and you deserve a pat on the back, honestly. With that said, automation is very important. It's a very useful tool. It's very strong, but I personally feel like it might have been pushed as the 21st century snake oil, meaning it doesn't necessarily remedy in-house problems. So if you haven't thought through your process, if you haven't put together a strategy, if you've been operating from a reactive classic sales model, automation doesn't make you modern. It's automation layered with thoughtful, deliberate planning and action. That's what's going to help you actually accelerate and scale.
I mean, I built a course on this because I thought it was important. So content strategy, CRM data being intact, and your workflows being intact. The last two, super important to actually get the content strategy out, either via email marketing or using your website. So definitely agree. Anyone want to expand directly on that before I let Jeff go into, or Stats go into the trim the fat conversation that we were going to have?
Well, I think that from an automation perspective, I agree with Jeff on that one, is that, automation, when it came out 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it was, automation always has that defined kind of, target area, so maybe it's 50 million and above is going to take automation. As automation goes down into lower revenue and to smaller staffing firms, that's what we're seeing right now. And we've been seeing that, especially as pandemic and, foundations kind of broken and automation can fix it and all these different things that are happening. And I think what you're going to see now is a level setting of like, do we need automation? Because I think our staffing firms that started automation and just working with these companies, they implemented automation with not really having a plan of how to manage it. And, whether that was being the way that they were told, or it's important, or we're celebrating the 7th year of digital transformation being the new word, or whatever that was, is I think that as you're getting down and as you're going, like I've seen it with smaller staffing firms. So like I have this and I have 2 automations. Why, what do I do? And you're seeing that like, well, at some point, there's an ROI conversation. There's a hard dollar conversation around like, is this helping you out? And it's okay if you say no. And I think you're going to see, and it kind of gets to the point of the, one of the things I think you're going to see is that trim the tech fat, where you're going to see some of these things that were meant to be pandemic savers and just adding these pieces onto the tech stack. At some point you're going to say, can I manage it? Is it providing value? I don't know. And then, how do we scale it up? And can we? Because I think there is a resource and process, to Leslie's point on the foundation. You got to have that foundation built before you scale anything. And I think if we're just kind of using Band-Aids on some of this stuff, because I believe in automation 100%. I love automation. Total nerd on it. But it's got to be the right, it's got to be the right fit. And I think you're going to see that kind of fit.
I think if you're looking at any one tool or any one process to be this silver bullet that's going to make everything go away, you are missing the point. It is all of these things working in collaboration to the desired end result. And when we don't have collaboration, and we don't have integration, and we don't have good cohesion, and we don't have adoption, we don't have all of those things, we haven't clearly worked on the foundation. We haven't taught our sales reps how to sell, which is one of Jeff's point. We haven't, and we were in a very, very different market where we could take orders and candidates were coming at us in droves. And it's just not that way anymore. We have to make sure, we have to continue to refine our skills. We have to continue to teach our recruiters how to recruit. Recruiting in a talent-starved market is a different beast than recruiting in a talent
rich,
flourishing,
poor,
talent-rich market. Thank you for the word. And so it's understanding what potential roadblocks we have in front of us, and then working together collaboratively. That's why Clearedge Marketing and Leap and Regents did that whole digital transformation change management article our ebook together, because if those aren't working together, you are not going to get that
What do
end
you mean?
result that you want. And again, putting that much responsibility on one tool of any kind, whether it's a marketing tool, automation tool, ATS, CRM, whatever, thinking that's the silver bullet, you again are missing.
To put just a fine tip on this too, Jeffrey Stats and myself, we're not suggesting that you should remove automation, right? And to Leslie's point, like the foundation is important. What I think we're all really hoping, like if there was a New Year's holiday wish that we have for the industry, it's that this creates the next shining light on your infrastructure that has you go back in and then do the work that probably needed to get done when you were implementing automation, right? So this should start showing you where those fractures exist so that you go in and, I hate that I'm going to say this again, build your candidate and client journeys and make sure that you have a mapped out process. And like, it's all the stuff that everybody hates. And when you say it, eyes roll. I see you, Jeffrey. Eyes roll, right? And I get it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like if you can't build a house on mud, it's not going to work. It's not going to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. This reminds me of just really quick. I was speaking with someone the other day, and a previous colleague of mine, and they're at a company now where in order to launch a marketing campaign, they have to use 7 different systems to do that. And I just was like, my jaw just dropped. I just can't believe it. And then that's just in marketing, right? So then the other departments that they work with closely have their own systems, and they don't talk, they don't speak the same language, and it's completely siloed. So it's a huge problem. And to everyone's point just now, it's like they're just trying to, every pain point, they're looking at it in silos. And so now they have this 7 system process to get out one campaign is ridiculous. The amount of time and effort that is spent to do that.
I think Lauren just threw up in her mouth, guys.
Yeah.
She was not happy at that.
It breaks my heart, like our 3 pillars are build, change, adopt. And just, we in our industry, Rob and I talk about this all the time. I'm not sure, like we love to throw money at a problem or just throw as many people at a problem as possible. And we love to overcomplicate. And it's like, how many obstacles can we put in front of our salespeople and our recruiters? And as a leader, I used to tell when I'd have one-on-ones with, my subordinates or my teams or what have you, I would say, but I have one job and one job alone. That is to remove anything that is in your way from getting your job done. And our job as leaders and owners and recruiters and salespeople is to help our leaders and help our agencies understand what's in our way. And then I look to the agencies and I look to the experts that we talk to remove whatever obstacles. Technology helps do that. Integration helps do that. But for whatever reason, we just love to throw complication
Things.
after complication and things and stuff in the middle of it. And the more you can simplify, the better off you'll be.
And Lauren and I will throw this in here because we've been joking about it behind the scenes for a couple of weeks now. Lauren and I taught a workshop on how to build a tech stack. And really what everyone wanted us was to do was just to tell them what to buy. And
Yep.
we don't do that because we're not your organization. We need to learn a lot more about you guys before we do it.
No, we'll
And
teach you how to fish.
yeah, mission, vision, values are important to preach what Lauren always says, which I love. And if you don't have those together, just like your workflows, just like your CRM data, don't bandied by, don't like, I think the podcast is the focus, right? Is to, it's the intersection of people and technology. And when you can get those right, which are all the things that we've all spoke about already, you'll have better outcomes. But
Mhm.
if you don't have the foundation, whether that's mission, vision, values to start, and then the basics of because marketing and sales are tied, right? People in the sales industry and the Salesforce world have been talking about sales marketing integration and alignment for years now, maybe like 7 to 10. We might start talking about that in the staffing industry soon, hopefully, but you should already be in line because, I was just talking to my good friend, Ashley Bolin, who I didn't realize took over marketing and sales at Tracker RMS. So shout out to Tracker for being a modern sales org in the SaaS world. They're selling to staffing, but yeah, I think you like get it right, get it tight, figure out your basics, and then we can start to build. But I do want to go to to Leslie real quick and continue to get you in this conversation. And we'll go, Jeff, we're going to go to you after, but you guys were both talking about sales. Jeff was talking, we're going to say, make sure people know how to sell, but you were saying the importance of your clients, your current clients, right? So you want to jump in, Leslie, and kind of get back to kind of the tree that we were running on here.
Yeah, sure. I think, what we're seeing, obviously, given what's going on with the economy and job market, is really just a lot of organizations are head down, right? They're thinking about what more could I do as individuals, as salespeople, as marketers, as leaders, what more can we do on multiple fronts, right? And we know that there's a lot of competition when it comes to price, speed, delivery, quality, but at the end of the day, it really boils down to customer experience and how can you continue to build your relationships? Do you really know your customers? Do you really know them inside, outside of work? How could you establish that foundation? I saw a stat recently too that it said 86% of buyers are willing to pay more for a great experience. And I think we all have individual stories probably where we pay more for a premium service and a premium quality, right? We can get the same thing for cheaper, but we know that it's consistent every single time that we work with that product or service. So, really doubling down on client retention is the focus right now, and making sure your clients are happy, satisfied, and can weather the storm over the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Well, I don't, if you listen to some economists, Rob and I have been there. I don't know that it's going to be, I think it's going to, we're going to be in for sort of the long haul with some uncertainty in the market. I think this is something that we're going to weather longer term. And Rob agree or disagree, but what we've heard is that this is going to be a longer haul. And I think you make a great point there, because some of the counseling or consulting that we're doing right now is with firms on how to maintain profitability. How do I get my net income up next year? And so now we're talking about reshaping your behavior about fulfillment. It's not just fulfillment. It is net fulfillment. It is not just logo. It is net new logo. It is not just, I have an existing customer. It is net new department. And it's that continual revenue preservation, right? And I put technology and process in two buckets: revenue preservation and revenue generation. And so when you can do that, you can simplify, again, we love this word, but simplify the way that you look at things. And that will help you simplify better profitability through process, through technology utilization. It'll help you trim the fat and whatever tech debt you have. But again, you got to start with that good foundation. I don't know how else you color that.
Yeah. It's really about, I think we touched on it earlier, just thoughtful application. Jeff, I think you mentioned that, just thoughtful application of technology and seeing, like, going back to the customer journey, right? We keep saying that, going through their journey and seeing where you can delight them. How do you create additional delight throughout their journey? How can you provide more value? How do you, do more for them? Is there ways to do more, add more value throughout the customer journey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was going to say,
retain.
I was going to break the mold or the idea on this automation conversation we were having before. And one of our customers has 29 jobs or new jobs with a placement that came from an email sales campaign from Bullhorn Automation. So we can track 29 placements to received this campaign, and then got engaged and a placement after the campaign started. So that new logo, technology using it the right way. I thought that was interesting.
If
Jeff,
you look at the performance of that campaign though, right? Ask the question, like, how prepared was that campaign to execute?
Oh, very.
Right? That wasn't a willy-nilly campaign.
No,
Nobody
no.
just jumped
Very
into
thoughtful.
a thing and right? So it was
We
a very
tweak it
thoughtful
every week.
campaign.
We
Right.
tweak
It
it every
drove
week.
down to a specific conversion for a specific thing with a specific action item that happens after that.
Yeah.
And I think that it makes, like, we have to really make sure that we're educating the community that none of these things happen like a snap of a finger, right? Nothing happens just because you did an email. It's the thoughtful progression. It's kind of like in Leslie when she's talking about retention of clients and like retain, as Lauren just said. Like, if whatever you've done for the last year, 5 years, 50 years, if you're looking and having concerns about retention, you cannot approach it the same way that you just did. You're going to have to go through and rethink the model a little bit and make sure that you're serving up this new norm, serving up like what the expectations are of the consumer.
You bring up a really good point because I think we take for granted or we assume, and we know what assuming does. It's an ass on you and me.
The odd couple.
But
Absolutely.
we assume that we have this engaged database,
Correct.
right?
Do
And
people
we
really
put out
assume
all
that,
these-
though, as someone who looks at people's databases.
Oh
I'm
my
sorry to cut you off.
gosh. With
Do they
as
really
many
assume that all the
automations,
time? Go ahead, sorry.
you have with as many automations as we see companies doing just in haste, or to think that more is better, you have to believe that the assumption is there that all of those people are just totally waiting on bated breath for whatever communication it is we're sending, and that's just
Because even
not
if you
the case.
even if you just converted, like it's almost like, if you just converted this many people per month, like, point whatever percent, like what does that mean to your, like it's
Okay.
if you don't do the pre-work, it's snake oil. If you don't set the foundation in place to have your process and your everything orchestrated, don't expect a phenomenal result. Automation
Yeah.
is not a silver bullet, as Lauren said.
And Jeff, to your point, like the post work, right? I mean, the post work is so important too. We launch campaigns all the time, and then what happens is they can't handle what comes in.
Mhm.
So that's a big problem. It's a huge disconnect
Staggered starts,
Huge.
Leslie.
Between marketing and operations.
Yeah.
If marketing is like we're doing we're going to go do a campaign and the internal staff isn't ready to receive that, that's like me doing an old fashioned call with nobody sitting in the branch.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
Like,
let's be
what do you
honest.
mean,
No
Ron?
one
I
is
mean,
no one is
right?
ready. If you email 100,000 people, no one is ready for 1,000 responses in a day, or even
No,
like
that's the
500.
thing.
Yeah.
But for
No
whatever
matter how
reason,
big
we
you
think
are.
more is better.
Yeah.
And it's targeted is better. Right?
Right.
We talk about profitability in our industry, and the more niched you get, we have higher margins. It's the same principle here. The more specific that we can get, we just did a referral campaign. We had a 67% response rate. You know what that tells me? That we're careful, thoughtful,
did it right.
pragmatic
Yeah.
about the way that we're sending out messaging. We don't take our end user for granted. And when we're asking for something or we're engaging, we then are, we're nurturing them. That's why it's, nurturing your database.
It also says they have done a hell of a lot of nurturing beforehand.
That's possibly true.
If you had 67% return rate on that, like they didn't
So
touch
good.
anything before.
So
Again,
it
like,
was so good.
Well, I mean,
So
don't
good.
yuck
It's an
your
amazing result.
ROI.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good ROI right there.
You had said earlier too that like, that marketing generates like don't sleep marketing and don't sleep some of these other things. I always tell people that I talk to, like, marketing can do an awful lot of things for you. It can't close a deal.
No.
So-
Well, it could what if you're a B2C brand?
Careful.
What if you're what do you mean careful? There's
I think that
higher
'cause you
billion-dollar
still need-
industries.
You still need someone to close that deal. That lead has to come in. Someone on that front line, sales or recruiting, is going to have to talk to that person because marketing isn't doing it. You might get some conversions up front that obviously fill out an application or a form, but that's not revenue. That's not ROI. That's
What
a
if they're
lead.
self-booking? What if they're booking on their,
It's not money until it's closed. If that money's
until they
not in
walk
the
through the door
account,
in our
doesn't
industry?
count.
Yeah, it's
Spoken like a true superstitious salesperson, which
Yeah,
I
if it's
am.
not in the
So
account, like if that
right-
check didn't clear, don't count it.
I was watching
still
one of
need
my
people.
buddies do receivables today at the co-working space I was at, and it looked miserable. So I
Oh,
feel it.
gosh.
it is miserable.
Anyway, okay, let's get back on the train again because then we're getting off on good side roads here. But let's get back. Since I just mentioned earlier that content strategy is part of your automation strategy and your marketing strategy, I'm gonna throw this one back to Leslie again and ask her, king and queen, by the way, thank you for including me in this. I appreciate that.
I don't discriminate.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's going to continue to be important for everyone? I'm going to let everyone chime in on this one because I think we all have opinions. So.
Oh my gosh. I just think having a content strategy is so important. There's so many things I could say about this. I think I in terms of trends, I think for 2023, I think you just have to focus on creating really amazing, memorable content. And the more that you can get internal folks involved, the better. I think this is not new, but people want to hear from people, right? They don't want to hear necessarily from brands all the time. So really building that user generated content is so important. I think going into next year, short form is still going to be on fire. I think when it comes to live streaming, it's going to continue to skyrocket. We're seeing that now, right? Think about Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, and it's really about that live engagement, that on the spot engagement and questions and speaking with your audiences at that moment is going to be really continue to be really on fire. And really just when think of yourself as a publisher, right? So think about all of one of the things I ask and talk about to prospects and clients is really, do you have a central place between you and sales where you collect all the questions that you're asked, right? And you need to answer those questions. That's the content you need to start publishing. There's a really good book. I don't know if anyone's ever read it. It's by Marcus Sheridan called They Ask You Answer. And it's amazing. It just completely nails the point on this whole theory, is that the content you should be writing about are the questions that your prospects are asking. And with everything going on with 0-click searches now, so you go into Google, you're searching for something, you don't even have to click on anything anymore. The answer just pops up. That's even more ammo for you to create really good content that speaks directly and to the pain points of your clients.
Love it. Gents, what will we got? You on?
Yeah. I mean, I think, Leslie's, very on point with content still being, it's always been important. And I think the shift is going to be, I think digestible content is going to be even more important. People are lazy. People are, when we put these content strategies and it's 70,000 word blogs and all this other stuff, I think people aren't connecting with what's going on. I think what they want to see is they want to be entertained. It's like Gladiator. Like, are you not entertained? Like they've got to have that connection. And, I'm sensitive to the SEO side of why content is important, but I think there's a technical content piece and then there's an entertainment content piece. And the good staffing firms are going to understand how to get them down the road, whether it's a candidate engagement and talking like a human, relevant conversation, or whether it's sales and moving them through the process, the mid-funnel content and that validation piece. And I think that the more that you can create an experience and tell a story, I think the better. Just like Leslie was saying, like kind of be the content producer and be that factory, but be authentic, I think is the other part of that. So
Jeff, I realize we didn't ask you about teaching your people to sell, but I'll get back to that in a second once we finish this combo.
teach people to sell.
Yeah, I mean, you got to teach them how to sell, right? I think it's pretty straightforward.
No one had
acquired,
but
I do want to say, if you don't follow, if any of you guys don't follow Audro on LinkedIn or in general, they create the best videos and like the most fun engaged. They're the most, from a staffing SaaS company, they're the most fun to watch.
Oh, Drew. Yeah.
They do really
Ryan,
funny stuff in video
really
all
great.
the time.
Well, and he's done you want to talk about authenticity. He and Derek from Pager have just nailed it as far as like bringing you into their community and creating this, like they know who they are. And that's why I think that's what's most important. When you talk authenticity, there's something that you're grounded to. And that's what I ask agencies to put the work into. And what was, so sort of eye-opening about that masterclass that Rob told you about is that, here we are trying to teach them these foundational things to do, and yet they still want the easy button. And finding your company's purpose or North Star or what have you, that takes work. And so, those foundational things, if you want to keep riding a bike well, you have to keep riding your bike. And so it's those foundational things that are going to make a big deal. We've talked about foundation. We've talked about collaboration. We've talked about content is king and queen. Talked about how experience, if you are a leader that owns your agency and you have not signed onto your website as a candidate and or a client to go through what the experience is, you are missing out big time. Reese Witherspoon, when she first started Draper James, used to do those when customers were calling in complaint calls. She wanted to know what customers were saying, which I thought was really awesome. So get engaged and understand what the experience is with your brand today. It'll help shape what you're doing moving forward, and then ultimately help you retain the business that you need to retain. So you have net, net income up and net new logo and net this and net that up in 2023.
I will say there's one staffing company. If you ever deal with Onin staffing, they have their own rock band that does covers, and they create music videos like quarterly or at least once or twice a year.
That's
And
interesting.
it's so funny and like they like act like a band and they record like this full on music video experience. It's pretty engaging. And then they, I don't know what else they do on the side, but that, and then I think travel nursing companies are probably the most interesting at actually creating content. So that's not to throw
Well,
anybody else under the bus, but it's just to say, like, if you need to find someone to model, those are the ones.
there's plenty of good examples of agencies that are doing good things out there.
From
Okay.
creating
I
original
need to
content.
know
Oh wait, from
really
creating
quick.
original content, like videos and like production level
Yeah.
of video. Why aren't you
Well,
sharing?
I mean,
these
I
with
think
me?
that there's a lot of firms doing good things.
Yeah. I was just going to give you kudos, Lauren, really quick, because you do a beautiful job of your brand, right? Your personal brand. And I think just, balancing, not coming out there directly selling your products and your services, but really being authentic in how you present yourself, and it's there, it's in the background. People get to know you and your expertise, but you don't necessarily lead with that. So I think it's it's a hard thing to get at, but once you get there, I think it really does show how you can do it without directly selling.
Leslie, I think you want to talk about her monochromatic business suit or power suits.
That too.
Just say it.
That
Just come
too.
out and say it,
Well,
Leslie.
I appreciate the compliment, and it is definitely. I think it's definitely a fine line, right? The salesperson in me wants so badly to go, let me tell you all about Leap, and like coming in hot with the what's in it for you if you work with me, and it's so me centric. And so the idea behind that, and any good thought influencer will tell you that, is just let the audience get to know you. And so if you can think about your agency as the you, they just want to get to know you and what it's going to be like to work with your team. And if you can give them, I think that's why Odro and Major have done so well. People are like, oh, I want to be a part of that, and I want to work with that person. So there's so much that you're with authenticity, that your brand that you can do without, being in your face about it.
Yeah, I agree.
There is also a common thread. Think about all the things that you all were like toting with that you enjoyed seeing and reading and experiencing. Those things had corporate culture buy-in. That wasn't an idea. They didn't go to another website and go like, oh my God, like so-and-so is doing rock music videos. We should totally do rock music videos. These are things that are authentically them at the core, at their culture. And I do believe that like it's an opportunity. 2023 is going to be a huge opportunity for staffing agencies to get to fall back in love with to fall back in. I just muted myself.
It was like a
So,
cliffhanger.
I was like,
didn't know what was
boom!
going to
I know.
happen.
I was like, oh my goodness.
Let your own
Wait,
adventure.
what are they going to do?
Choose your own. Like on next week's episode, Jeff Pellicio talks about
Jeff just ended the episode.
you Yellowstoned me, man.
I
Like,
hate
come
when that
on.
happens. I really do. I hate it. Don't cut it off there, Rob.
Yellowstoned me. You are now my favorite person.
Oh, I
freaking
love it.
that.
Love it.
All right. Well,
like,
now
but
that the
it's gonna
soap
be the-
opera's over, go.
It's going to be the year for them to fall back in love with why they started their business, right?
Ooh.
If you don't have, like to Lauren's point, that North Star, if you don't have that thing that like that primordial goo, you've got like a copy and pasted version of mission, vision, core values, founding principles, like executive summary, whatever it is. If you just copy and pasted it, then
You wrote it-
2023 is your year. Let me tell you,
You phoned it
2023
in.
is your year to actually go in, make it your own, find out from your community, your own people, what they want to stand for. If you're having a tough time figuring that out, stand for something. If there's something that we saw through the pandemic, it's that consumers are no longer looking for generic brands. You cannot just stand for the thing that you sell. It's not good enough anymore. And your culture will cut through, right? So if you're mimicking others, if your culture isn't one that actually gets on board with messaging to promote, I think Leslie had said, like making sure that like your people are actually involved in doing the different things. We talked about community management. The best community managers are inside the organization, not outside because they can answer all those questions. So like really being thoughtful. If you do want to use external resources, use them in a way that you get the best bang for your buck, and utilize those internal resources for the things that you can't get outside.
Yeah,
I
and
think to that point too. Oh, sorry, Lindsay.
no,
Go.
no, go ahead, Jeff. Go.
I would say to that point too, I think there is a buy-in. Leslie, you mentioned it around, just that foundational buy-in, which starts at the top and then kind of goes throughout. But then also the tech that you like, there's got to be a culture fit around the agencies you work with or the people you bring in. Like, I think there is going to, there's going to be a tipping point of that. And even to the teaching people to sell again, like, you're going to have people that are bought into that mission. If you don't have a mission, they don't care. And if they don't care, like, they're not doing anything. And I think you're going to see the fact that there's going to be this purpose-driven, marketing, sales, like everybody's got to be on the same board and the same, like they got to be aligned into what's going on, or you're going to see this kind of fractional crumbling of like, just, this might be good, but this might just stink. And we can sell, but we can't service.
People want to be inspired. They want to be inspired.
Yeah.
Like, motivate them and inspire them to do amazing things. Inspire them to be like the best version of who they are.
Yeah.
And if that's not what you're developing, then like,
get acquired.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You got it in there, guys. You got it in. Got it in. All right. And on that word of the day.
And I know the company that could buy you.
I have nothing else to add. My point is.
On next week's episode, there will be people talking about M&As.
Now that Jeff got that in, that was the word of the day, guys, by the way.
That was
I
an
know.
episode.
I know.
Hence all the
John
laughter.
Dutton and Jeff Pellicio. That's it.
Yeah.
So
No, in all
let's go
seriousness, the
Yellowstone
only other
moment.
thing I was going to add to that was I think you both made a really good point, but the key word here is action, right? You can put whatever mission statement you want on your website. You can say you do this or you feel passionate about this, but going back to that word authentic, right? It's just, you have to, you have to take action. It's something that we constantly talk to people about. Is just, they didn't know what to do with all the DE&I initiatives, right? Just as an example, let's change the color of our logo. Well,
yeah, let's put rainbow on the certain day. Like,
and
that really
that's it.
helps.
Right. But you have to, and I know it's overwhelming, but to take it in bite-sized pieces, and it shouldn't just live in one organization. It has to be incorporated into everyone has to be accountable for it, not just the executive leadership team. So it's so important, and not to just have it live in some vanity metric that, that is on your website and just say you have to be it. You have to be it. And like I said, you don't have to tackle everything at once. I know it's overwhelming, but it's definitely more than just changing the colors of your logo. You have to adopt that vision and your mission. And you have to show your people that you're serious.
If you're not in love as the leader, it's going to be very obvious too. Like, if you're not in love with
Yeah.
the brand and why you're doing it,
And they
it's
see
going to
right
be
through
very
it.
obvious.
They see right through it.
Anyway,
I mean, you can't. Yeah.
You need to get to a point where this is, I used to look at this, that we had done training so right and so thoroughly that if somebody had called in and complained and said that my recruiter said one thing, when I know they would never say that because of the due diligence that we've gone through and the conversations that I hear every day, and that it would be so out of character or out of normal process and those types of things. You want to get it to a point where you have so much confidence in how your people are speaking to candidates and clients that, when you get those harebrained calls or complaints or what have you, you're like, no way, not here. That's not the way that we talk to people. That's the living it and the breathing it and owning it and working it every single day. And it takes work. I did a post this week about, entrepreneurship, and because I had literally seen like my 17th post in the morning. I'll get up and look at a few things. I'll just see what notifications are out there. There were like 17 posts about, brand new entrepreneurs have their business and they're, out on a beach or sipping a Mai Tai somewhere. And I'm like, that's not the real picture. I am up at 3 a.m. writing requirements and not, I look like, garbage lit on fire. It's just not the reality. And so I want our agencies to know that this does take work. There isn't an easy button.
All right.
Everyone's
So
trying to figure it out, right? I mean, you don't have to.
Yeah.
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 you don't eat
Anybody
the
who says
elephant.
they've all got it figured out is also selling beachfront property in Arizona. That's my go-to.
We're not there yet. Maybe Georgia or Tennessee. All right.
Sure.
I live in Florida. So does Leslie. Leslie, closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts. I think I would say
One thing's fine, by the way.
one thing.
Yeah.
2023 is going to be, you have to plan. One of the trends I mentioned was just planning for pivot. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. Just plan for B, plan C, plan D, and be okay and be ready to deliver value and deliver it as often as possible. So having that mindset going in, I think will help companies set expectations and really build really dynamic plans that can switch depending on how this economy ends up turning.
Stats.
I think I actually, like, I started thinking about like the 2023 is the year of action, but that's like way too like vague and everything else. But
That's not
I think
marketing approved. I'm not going to.
yeah, because as vague as possible. Yeah, that was 2 years worth of thinking. But like, no, I think prioritizing ROI is something. I think from tools to tactics to process, like really taking your time to look at value of what you're doing and what you're not doing. And I think that fits in, at least from what I'm seeing with our clients, is they're finally starting to look at like, oh my God, like what is happening? Am I actually getting any value out of whatever I'm buying or doing? And I think at some point that we've got to prioritize ROI in the staffing industry. I know it's difficult. Not all things can, but I think that's a major theme and should be a major action point for staffing firms going in the next year.
Jeff P.
I think 2023 is the year to get real. Get real this year. Yeah. Dig into your brand. Keep it real. No, dig into your brand. Your authenticity is key. You have a reviews economy. You have a lot of people leaning on influencers in order to be able to understand what it is they're going to do for their next big decision. Getting a job, big decision. So you really need to get real. We can't do this manufactured environment anymore. You can't do a brand from an arm's distance. It has to be something that's inside the culture, and make sure that the things that you do push forward are the things that build sort of a bulletproof environment for your brand, right? Like create a predictable space for yourself. Like to what Lauren said earlier, there's nothing worse than like getting a phone call or having something pop up where you're like, maybe that did happen, right? So build a predictable environment for you, your people, your clients, your employers, your candidates, your community. Like get real this year. That's my message.
2023 and me. No? What do we think?
That's really funny. That's really funny. I might steal that. I might steal it.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. I'm the gift that keeps on giving. There you go.
To recap, we got foundations, right? Which is kind of all this authenticity stuff, this knowing what your marketing is, getting all that tech right, getting the training right. That's part of foundations, mission, vision, values. Automation is not maybe like, think about your ROI of all your software. Automation is not a magic bullet. We also talked about making sure that your people know how to sell, which is kind of foundational, but they've been
that is so foundational, kind of foundational.
That was sarcasm, Lauren. For the
okay,
it
wasn't dripping call. With it, so
I thought you could have got the context clues of my sarcasm. Jeez. Anyway, okay. No, so making sure that people can sell. Even most people have been order takers for a while. Also making sure that your sarcasm is really clear. No, I'm kidding.
Clearly, your message. I said
I really messed that up. Lauren, what do you got? Did I miss anything?
No, I think you're spot on, my friend.
That wasn't sarcasm, was it?
No, no, it wasn't sarcasm at all. I think you're absolutely spot on. We got to have a good foundation. We have to have a bias towards action. I'll use your words, and we have to keep experience and retention as experience, retention, and ROI. Jeff, I'm with you. Getting very, very right with who you're using and how they benefit the organization, and having clarity of purpose with each of your tools is going to be fundamental.
Well, thank you, everybody. Leslie, Thank you
Yeah,
for jumping
this has
on.
been fun.
Hopefully this was a positive experience in your day.
I will not send an email later, guys. I'm super happy.
Yes.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Jeffrey Staats and Jeff Pellicio, as they are listed here on Zoom. I appreciate both of you for always jumping on and sharing and taking care of the industry. Guys, you need to have marketing, especially if you don't have as much headcount for whatever reason. So, these guys are great resources. Clearedge, Allied Insight, and Haley. They're both all three are really great people to work with. So
If our listeners want to find you, how do they find you? Jeff, Pellicio, go. How do they find you?
on
Go
a
right to
corner in
Allied
Manhattan. Sorry.
Just come to the Bronx. No,
Swap
go to the
left,
Bronx.
go
We'll
up.
go over to
Oh,
Arthur
boy.
Avenue.
Oh, no,
We'll go
look,
get some
we gotta end
pizza,
this.
maybe
Jeff,
some
we
ziti.
don't want to find you. We gotta end this.
No,
Ew.
if you want to find us, you go right to alliedinsight.com and you'll find everything you need there. If you want to get onto our social media or contact us for anything, you get right to my calendar.
Leslie, how do we find you?
Yeah, you can find Clearedge Marketing, clearedgemarketing.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Leslie Clark.
Appreciate
Look
you
at
not making
fun-
that
Funny
complicated.
that. Simple branding. Jeffrey Stats, how do we find you?
HaleyMarketing.com or hit me up on LinkedIn.
Always
Fantastic.
good when you put what you do in the name of the business. I'm super excited. Jeff Pellicio. Anyway. All right, guys. Thank you all, Lauren. Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy
You're
holiday.
real.
Bye, guys.
Thank you guys so much.
See you later.
So, signing off. This is Rob.
And I'm Lauren.
Now go do something good. Thanks, guys.